Thanks very much, David and Vanessa, for your very informative presentations in your respective areas. Very interesting to see the role of the environmental assessments and how they inform and align with the plan making process. And again, Vanessa, very user-friendly system in terms of engaging with the public, and it's very easy to use, and we really hope people get their submissions in, and we can take their views on board and address them and reflect them as part of the plan. After all, the development plan is to guide and improve the quality of life for people in their communities. Orla McGann, our Senior Executive Planner, has been working in the background here to answer the questions that have been coming in throughout the webinar. I think they've pretty much all been addressed. So one or two questions that have arisen through our public consultation meetings on the county development plan, where people have been seeking clarity, is people are looking to see where can they find specific details in relation to their local areas. And when you're moving through the plan on the consultation portal, Chapter 2 on the core strategy will give you a high-level overview of where your settlement sits and the role that it plays in the future development of the county. And then Chapter 8, settlement plans, sets out specific policies and more in-depth information in relation to your settlement, population trends, the amenities and services that are available there. And you read this chapter together with Volume 2, the Book of Maps. So each settlement that's outlined in Chapter 8 will have an associated zoning map, and it will set out specific objectives for parcels of land in terms of their future use, whether that be for residential, commercial or parks and open space uses. And it also sets out local development objectives to your area. So if you read those 3 chapters together, you'll be able to find out specific information around your local area. Another question some people had, it was, we have high-level objectives included for the towns of Athlone and Mullingar, which are regional designations under the Regional Spatial Economic Strategy and underpinned by the National Planning Framework. And people are saying that there's no zoning maps in here and no specific policies for Athlone and Mullingar. And the way the planning structure is formed in the Irish planning system, there's a hierarchy of plans where at a national level you've got the MPF, followed by a regional spatial and economic strategy. And the county development plan then aligns with these 2 strategies, and following them, for any town that has a population greater than 5,000 people, you're required to prepare a local area plan in line again with the county development plan. So it's anticipated that the county development plan will be adopted in June of next year. It will come into effect in July, and from there we will commence the process of preparing a local area plan for the key town of Mullingar and a joint urban area plan together with Roscommon County Council for the regional designated centre of Athlone. So there are some of the questions that we've been receiving through the public consultation, and our Q&A facility is still open for anyone that would like anything specifically addressed. And as I said, cdp@westmeathcoco.ie if you want to email in any queries or you need assistance in terms of uploading your submission to the portal. But I'll hand you over now to David and Vanessa, maybe if there's any areas that you receive specific queries in general when you're dealing with other county development plans. So David maybe first might just give us some of the queries you deal with on a regular basis around the environmental assessments.
Thanks, Catalyst. Yeah, a common enough query is one asking how the SEA and AA processes have informed the various plans, the county development plans. Westmeath, we've informed the county development plan on a number of different levels, from a very early stage in the identification of different alternatives for the county at population projection level, but also at land use zoning for settlements they are available. So we inputted into the consideration of alternatives when Cataldas and the team were preparing their plan. And then when the alternatives for the plan were selected, we examined the different mapped land use zoning objectives to see if there was a need to tweak them to avoid environmentally sensitive areas. And I know that the SFRA team done the same on that as well. We also examined the different words and sentences and policies and objectives in the plan to make sure that sufficient protection was provided for the environment, and to make sure that any potentially conflicting statement or policy or objective took cognizance of the environmental issues in the county.
Thanks very much for that, David. And just before I hand you over to Vanessa, somebody has submitted a question just in relation to landscape character assessments and renewable energy strategies and the wind energy designation zones. So as part of the preparation of this county development plan, we reviewed our existing landscape character assessment, and we also did a full review at a more granular level of all our existing protected views, scenic routes and areas of high amenity designation. So as part of the plan, there is a separate volume which sets out in great detail the areas which are of significant, I suppose, beauty and attractiveness in the county, and for which specific policy has been tailored. The underlying landscape character assessment from the previous plan is still robust and it's still applicable to this development plan. And there's also a wide variety of enhanced policy around renewable energies. The preparation of a renewable energy strategy, the local authorities are now setting up their climate adaptation teams in the council, and they'll be specifically dealing with areas such as renewable energy strategies and how we change our behaviour as communities, as local authorities, and I suppose as a society in terms of those carbon reduction measures in the future. So I hope that answers your question, and maybe just pass you over now to Vanessa, and maybe you might give a quick outline of any of the kind of issues that you encounter on a day-to-day with the public in terms of their engagement with the plan making process, how they can make their submissions, and I suppose so that people don't feel afraid to engage with the process, and that they, that they're assured that all of their comments are taken into consideration and the information that they bring is a valuable element of the preparation of the final plan that's adopted by our elected members.
Thanks, Cataldas. Yes, and I think just David mentioned it, and it's an important point to reiterate that all submissions come in do have to be considered and reported in the Chief Executive's report. So it's very important that if you have any views on any information in the plan or that we discussed today, that you take the opportunity before the 30th of June to make your submission. It doesn't have to be extraordinarily long. Just share your views, and the more people that participate in this, it's very important. Just maybe two questions. While there is an online portal, and that's there really to make the information as accessible as possible, you can access it on your phone. There's no barriers to reading or understanding this plan, and that you can also very easily make a submission. You can also make a postal submission. So if you have family members that may not feel okay with technology, they can put in a postal. But if you do, if you can, we would recommend putting it in by the portal, simply because the information comes in a way that's very easy to view and explore. And one important point on that is just since October 2018, all submissions now have to be published within 10 days of receipt. So that happened last October, which means that if you put in your submission, it will be published, and it means you can read other submissions. So it's very helpful maybe in addressing and people have found it helpful, and you see that difference coming in now in submissions, that reading and hearing all the points of view as you do make your own submission. Those are the two main points really, that there are two options, to be as accessible as possible, and that submissions now do have to be published under the Planning Act changes.
Thanks very much, Vanessa. And I just noticed here, it's great to see our elected representatives, the councillors of Westmeath are following today's webinar, and they've been very active and they've been very engaged in the process to date. They've brought invaluable knowledge and they've really informed the plan. And a question in from one of our councillors is, how will the draft programme for government, if it's adopted, how will it impact on this draft development plan? And I suppose it's just to understand that all our strategies, from a national to regional to county development plan level, undergo reviews on a regular basis. So even when, as part of this public consultation process, any change in policies in the areas are updated through our relevant strategies, and the plans will reflect these strategies and programmes for government, and also they're flexible and adaptable as well, so that they're able to change and support changes in environment and thinking. And I think the plan is probably it's probably anticipating a lot of the issues that have been in the programme for government, particularly the change in focus on carbon reduction measures, the focus on economic development and supporting economic competitiveness, the importance of the viability of our rural areas, and ultimately that quality of life theme that sits throughout the plan. But if there are any, I suppose, significant policy changes that haven't been anticipated, again, it's an evolving process, and it's a process that is subject to review on a regular basis. And even when the county development plan is adopted, there are mechanisms there whereby the development plan can be varied to support any changes that hadn't been foreseen in the policy. So I think we've moved through all of our questions, and want to really thank everybody. We've had great engagement with the webinar. I think we'll be seeing this as a means of public consultation a lot more in the future, and I suppose sometimes you get pushed into these things by unforeseen circumstances such as COVID-19, and perhaps it's a very useful method of engagement with the public in any event. So I want to thank everyone for coming in. I hope everybody took something from the webinar today. I hope you have a better understanding of the county development plan and the process surrounding how you make it, how you interact with it, how you can put in a submission and have your voice heard, and how you can shape the development policy for your local area. I also want to give a particular thank you to David from CAS Environmental Consultants. An excellent and very informative presentation on the very important integration of the environmental elements of the plan, and also to Vanessa, CEO of Civicue, who are the leading public consultation and public engagement consultants in this area, really making things simple to understand, to follow, and to engage with the process. So thank you very much, everybody, and I look forward to reading your submissions on the plan and considering them as part of the final document.
Thanks, Claudius.
Thanks, everybody.